So hi everyone, welcome to this course taster session organized by the ECPR Methods School. Today with us we have Jo Howard. She's a research fellow and leader of the Participation, Inclusion and Social Change Cluster. She also co-convenes the Master Program in Participation, Power and Social Change at the Institute of Development Studies based at the University of Sussex. With us, ECPR Methods School, Jo teaches the course Using Participatory Research Methods in Political Science Research. And she will briefly explain to you what her course is about and its main applications in political science. So welcome and thank you so much, Jo, for being here today. And I hope you enjoy. Jo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I feel very honoured to stand here after Mary Robinson was here yesterday. I feel I'm going to be transported into global influence platforms. So I'm here just to give you a little bit of an introduction to the course that I run, an online course as part of the ECPR Methods School. And I've now run it twice. And it's really fun. It's a great experience. I think maybe the first thing to say is that participatory research methods are applicable to a very wide range of topics, research interests. So I think I won't tell you where you can apply it. I will give you some insights into what it can look like, and then maybe there's some time for you to reflect and ask questions, trying to relate it to what you do and what you might wish to do. This course is inspired by and draws on work that we do in my research cluster at IDS, the Institute of Development Studies. We run short courses there too. And we run one specifically on participatory action research, which is an area of research that sits within participatory research. But today I'm going to talk to you about participatory research more generally. But this is also to give you so to let you know that examples that I use in the course are drawn from research I've done in the UK, but also in the Global South, because a lot of our work at IDS is in the Global South. But I know there's quite a range in participants at this conference of where you work. You don't. Some of you are not doing your research in Europe, right? You're doing research in other parts of the globe. The first thing to have you think about is what makes participatory research participatory. How is it different from other research methodologies? And I think, so the first part of the course has you think deeply about this. And we use this quote, I use this quote because it pulls together in one phrase a lot of the core aspects of participatory research for you to think about. This is from Hilary Bradbury from the Handbook of Action Research from 2015. And she describes participatory research as a democratic and participative orientation to knowledge creation. It brings together action and reflection, theory and practice in the pursuit of practical solutions to issues of pressing concern. The co-creation of knowing with, not on people. So within that, you've got a whole mass of principles, values, and approaches that sit within what participatory research is. And what I would foreground is perhaps this part about co-creating knowledge. So we all co-create knowledge, right, in different ways with different methods, but we don't perhaps recognize and foreground the person that we're co-creating that knowledge with. And participatory research aims to very explicitly bring that person whose experience, whose knowledge you are bringing into your research as a co-researcher with you. So they bring knowledge, data, and in the participatory research process, they co-create knowledge together. So in that process, you're trying to build democratic ways of engaging, participation, and action and reflection, theory and practice. Another thing is that the practical solutions participatory research tends to be used in settings where there are applied practical things that people want to find out and take action around. That doesn't mean that your research has to have a clear action orientation, but there will be that the research in itself is participatory research looks at real world issues, and the people who engage in that research are people who experience those issues in their lives and will want to think about solutions, theories of change, ways of addressing those issues. So it has a practical orientation. It's democratic because within the participatory research design, you will look for methods that enable people to enter into dialogue with each other. It's not just about data extraction, but about the people who bring that data into the research get to talk about it. They get to have a dialogue with others about it, and they get to talk together about what it means. So that's a really key thing as well, that participatory research, traditionally, a traditional form of research is that we gather data, we take it away to our office or our home, and we work out our coding scheme, we apply it, we do the analysis, and we decide what it means. We make the meaning. Whereas in participatory research, we make meaning with the participants. They're engaged in thinking about, analysing, what does this data mean? What does it mean to us, and what does it mean that we can do? This might sound like a tall order. How can I bring that kind of level of dialogue and engagement throughout my research process? So something that I use and encourage you to think about is this very useful diagram that Vaughan and Jaques provide. It's a open access article that you can find. I'm happy to share these slides if people want them afterwards, by the way. So they talk about the phases of a project. That's the inner cycle. So you've got partnering, finding your partner in your research, designing your research, collecting your data, analyzing your data, disseminating your findings, and perhaps some kind of action. What they say is think about what level of participation can you really aspire to through that cycle. And this may be that it can go, and they use the IAPP framework for participation, which has these levels from inform to consult to involve to collaborate to empower. So a really deep participatory research process, you may be aiming to collaborate and empower throughout, or you may realistically be wanting to do that more in certain phases. And you know that because you have a PhD to write and you have to publish it and you have to present and so on, that the dissemination phase is very much about your PhD thesis, and there's going to be less engagement with your participants at that stage. So you can think sort of realistically, what is it that we aspire to? You could also use this as a tool with your participants, with your research, with your co-researchers. So what level of participation would they like through the research process? Okay, I'm going to talk you through what I do during the week of the course, but these are sort of some headlines. So thinking about the levels of participation and not feeling I have to hit the gold standard in every single moment of my research, but think about what's realistic for me. And the other thing is about research methods. So there's a whole stable, a huge array of participatory research methods that are drawn from a whole range of different disciplines and sectors. And they can be used throughout that process. They can enable different things. So I'll come back to that one in a minute. But so bear that in mind. You can use participatory methods for different purposes. And if we look at, so when I showed you that wheel earlier, the center, the phases, I've put across in this table. So you can think about in the different phases of a project, what is it that you're trying to do, and how might participatory methods help you to achieve those things, so that your research is with, not on, the people that you're working with, and that it's more democratic and collaborative. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit when I describe the day by day of the course, I've highlighted the methods that I share and that we practice across the course. So those are methods that you can use in different stages. And you're thinking about, well, how can I partner? How can I build my partnership with my research group, cohort, community in the most participatory way? How can we get to know each other? How can we develop a relationship before we start the research? What participatory methods can help with that? What methods can I use so that we co-design the research process? What methods can I use so that the collection of data is participatory? And what methods can I use so that we analyze the data together in a collaborative way? And what methods might I use for dissemination? Perhaps I'm going to write a journal article, but perhaps I'm also want to get this out on the radio, or there's a community that we could share these findings with through participatory theatre. So think about dissemination as well. And what kind of actions might be and advocacy might we be taking at the end of it? There may be that, depending on your research design, that you may be taking action in that loop of collecting and analysing data, that as your group gathers their data and analyses it, they decide to take some form of action, and then you reanalyze data after some actions have been taken. So this is a key difference between a participatory research process and a non-participatory one, is that it may be iterative. You don't go necessarily in one straight line, but you may come back and ask a different question. Your group may, the group that you form as co-researchers, collect and analyze data, and then may say, well, we need to ask a different question now. So it's keeping those questions open, and flexibility in your research design. Anyway, so back to this one. So the different kinds of methods that you could use, we draw a lot on visual methods, drawing especially. It's simple, people can do it in real time. They're also taking photos, visual methods, but they can be used, as I said before, to build the group and to collect data and to analyze data. So the one on the left, for example, is a problem tree. Don't know if anyone here speaks Spanish. You're nodding it. So that actually says unemployment. So this was a participatory research project where the group were looking at issues that they faced, and unemployment was one that they wanted to analyze more. And then, so they looked at what were the causes and consequences of that problem, which they analyzed using the problem tree. So that's using participatory methods for analysis. And the one on the right is a river of life, where the participant can draw their journey around a particular topic that you might be focusing on in your research. And then the group will share their rivers of life. So you have the individual story, but then there's a dialogue around what people notice across the different experiences, which can then lead into a collective analysis. Okay, we can come back to any of these things for questions. So I'm going to now briefly run you through the course outline, and then come back to any kind of questions that you might have. So excuse me just a sec. So the first day of the course is background to participatory research, the action research principles and the cycle. So a little bit of what I gave you that tiny flavour of from that quote. So what are the principles that underpin participatory research? What are the cycles of participatory and action-oriented research? How do you think about that reflection and analysis and theorization, or and then action? How might you think about that in terms of your research? And the background to participatory research, I talk about the different traditions and influences, which range from, particularly come from the Global South. So from Chile and Colombia, Paulo Freire and Orlando Falsborda, who had a very revolutionary way of thinking about research and about how academics can engage in research with communities. And they're foundational in the thinking about why participatory research as a political endeavor, and also the how. But also other methodologies that have come through, particularly in the international development field, through Robert Chambers and others who wanted to bring the knowledge of people living in poverty into have them to center their knowledge and have them analyze their situations rather than having outsiders come in and decide what the issues were. So it was that reversal of power that really underpins this kind of work. So we talk about that and also about our own power and positionality in the research process, which can generally be ignored, easily be ignored, our own power relationship with the research participant. But in participatory research, we have to make it visible and think about what it means, how we can engage with, as an academic, with a community group, for example, with a group of people experiencing marginalization, what the ethical implications are, but also how we can develop a more horizontal collaborative relationship, how we can adapt, how we can check, how we can flatten that hierarchy. And then I give you a case study, which is a cooperative inquiry, which is a methodology within the kind of broad world of participatory research. And that particular example comes from Nicaragua. Right. How am I doing for time? Plenty. Halfway. So day 2, we talk about participatory research principles. So drawing on that background and the knowledge from day 1, then we start to generate, well, what are the principles of how to do participatory research? And these are really important because they inform both how you think about your epistemology, but also how you think about your facilitation and how you work, because they are linked. And we do a practice of rivers of life. So all the participants will do their own river of life. I should say there's homework on this course. So because this is online and it's only 3 hours, there's a bit of work to do after the course when you will draw your river of life. And then in day 2, we do an exercise where we present them and discuss. And so you actually get to practice that method. And then you get some input on storytelling as a research method and what it offers. And then We also do some narrative storytelling. So participants will collect a story mainly from each other or from somebody else if they can get hold of them. So after day 2, you go away and collect a narrative story. And on day 3, we practice narrative story analysis. And then I give you some examples of how it's used in some case studies from Gateshead in the north of England and from Bangladesh, which is peer research using storytelling. And we talk a bit about how you train your co-researchers to gather data. So there are different models of participatory research. You could be facilitating the whole process, or you can train a group of people who are going to lead the research with you, who are going to be your co-researchers, and they go out and collect data. So in these examples, we've trained story collectors, peer researchers in different marginalized settings to go and collect stories from their peers. In the case of Bangladesh, from other people with visual impairments, and in Gateshead from a range of people from asylum seekers and people living in poverty, recovering from addiction and so on. So then we talk about, so how do you do the training and how do you support a group of co-researchers? And then we get into design principles, which is where you start to think about those phases of your research project and what your question is, what's your big question and so how you might think about planning a participatory process in order to answer that question. Think about who you want to work with. What is your question? Who do you want to work with? And how could you engage them meaningfully across the different phases of your project? On day 4, we do some more on research design, and we also talk about facilitation. Because participatory research is mainly group-based, facilitation is really important. It's not, you may do one-to-one, and you can do one-to-one interviews also with your participants as to have an additional source of data. But a lot of the discussion and is group-based, so bringing the participants together to share their experiences and to analyze together. So we do some practice and thinking about how you facilitate a group, how you manage the dynamic of a group, how you, and so that's quite a fun exercise as well. And then you go away and spend some time working on the beginnings of a research design. So the aim is that by the end of the week, you will have a sketch. You will have an outline of a participatory research design, which may be one that you actually, you've come to on the course because you know you're going to do it, or you may have just treat it as an opportunity to practice. But you should come to the course with something in mind. And by day 5, you've got an outline, and then each participant presents the outline and we get feedback. The group provides feedback on that outline. And with the 4th credit, the 3 credits and the 4 credits, if you're interested in credits, you can do some extra work on your design, and I will give you feedback after the course, and that gives you the 4th credit. And there's an office hour each day to talk through if you want help thinking through your particular project or if you have any specific questions.